My people, make we talk. When this town becomes an ugly place, don't let it erase the smile from your face. Make we talk.
Good afternoon, where we're listening from around the world and the Eastern Caribbean. This is the MECWI Talk program here in WZPP and WZOP. The contents that is being said on this program is not necessarily those of WZPP, WZOP, or the host of the MECWI Talk program. This afternoon we're going to have Mr. Dale Holness, who's going to come in with us. We're going to talk money. We have candidate for the United States Senate, Mr. Stanley Campbell, who is on the line with us. Mr. Campbell, welcome to the program, sir.
Well, thank you, and thanks. Good afternoon to everyone, Jeffrey.
Oh,
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. Mr. Holness is there. I didn't know you were there, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'm here at the beautiful country club in Palm City with Mr. Stanley Campbell, the owner of this 228-acre PGA golf facility.
Yes.
It is a facility, nice country club, great greens, Martin Downs Country Club, and golf course.
Wow.
Is one of the PGA's Professional Golf Association tournament sites. So we've spoken before with Mr. Campbell,
yes,
Stanley Campbell. He was born in Liberty City, Miami.
Yes.
To a Jamaican father and a Bahamian mother. So he's a Caribbean man at heart.
He has Jamaican roots indeed.
Yes, and Bahamian roots. So
yes.
he's very well-rounded when it comes to the Caribbean. We understand our community quite well. He attended school in Miami and in Miami Beach and really intermingled greatly with the Jewish community there. So he understands the diversity of the entire Florida
yes, sir.
quite well. Attended FAMU, Florida A&M University, and also Florida State University. Served in the military as a Navy man, in fact, a pilot who flew some very serious missions, has great clearance, security clearance, highest level you probably could have, because many of those missions, especially during Reagan time when we took on the Soviet Union, those missions helped to bring down the Berlin Wall.
Yes.
And help to change the world order, so to speak. Now we're here with him this afternoon, and after he left the Navy, he actually went out and started a technology company. He holds 12 patents in artificial intelligence. That's some big stuff, man. Everybody's talking about it now, but he was there before now. Part of his technology that he's built assists the U.S. government through the Department of Defense, Medicare, Medicaid, the Indian Health Services Program for American Indians, and others to detect fraud in medication.
Yes.
With over 300 million Americans in his database, this guy's done some big stuff. Actually worked closely with someone that I admire for many, many years and worked in his organization, Push People United Serve Humanity, Jesse Jackson. And some of those who are a little bit older, maybe not you, would know when Jesse Jackson actually went to the Middle East to bring home some American pilots that were captured by some bad folks over there. He was in the room and was a part of that. I think he actually helped to flew the mission to help get those folks home. He flew mission all over the world. Today, he's a candidate for the United States Senate. So we have future Senator Campbell here with us. His brother is very famous in the music industry. I actually first person to really put Miami on the map in music with his group, the Two Life Crew. And the hip hop folks today, he set the stage for what they're doing.
Okay.
Music was a little bit unorthodox at the time. People said it was a little raunchy, but two brothers, two different backgrounds. But Stanley's here with us today, and what we're going to do is try to talk a little bit about some policies, give you a little bit of a background there. So, Stanley, welcome to the Money Talk program on Make We Talk with or radio station, the Voice of the Caribbean, broadcasting. And listen, folks, if you have tuned in and you have friends, call them, tell them to go to WZPPradio.com and download the app. No matter where they are, they can listen. And I know we're all over the state of Florida with several radio stations in Tampa and Orlando, in the Treasure Coast, in South Florida, and Miami, and Broward County. So, Stanley, you're a military man. And we see some issues today with the U.S.Senate having difficulty confirming people who needs promotion. I think we have over 300 members of the military that one person, Senator Tuberville, is blocking. And we have the looming shutdown of the country again that would probably put at risk the payment to these veterans if the U.S. Congress doesn't pass a budget within the next few weeks. Would you talk a little bit about that based on the fact that you serve in the military? You know how important it is to ensure we have good leaders in place.
Yes, and thank you, and thank you to the full complement of WZPP radio listeners. Thank you all for having me here again. As it relates to veterans and the United States Department of Defense, it is virtually lunacy to have the senior military leadership, which has to be confirmed by Congress through the Senate, to be held up for their promotions. What winds up happening here is the fact that as those people are held up, you have retirements that are also held up because these are people who serve at the pleasure of the president. And if you can't do promotions, you can't keep people in, you wind up having those who are in leadership have to do two jobs. So the last 2 weeks, we've seen the head of one of these, the Marine Corps, having to go to the hospital because at the end of the day, though they're sailors, they're soldiers, they're airmen and Marines, and these are the toughest guys that have ever served this nation, they are still human. They still have families. They still have everything that we have in the leadership of a corporation, but they also have the responsibility for men and women who have to put themselves in harm's way. I know myself as a young officer, we look to that leadership and we look to the civilian leadership for leadership and guidance. We don't ask a lot of questions. We basically get orders, we go and we fight. What we've done now with the civilian leadership in turmoil, we've now made those young soldiers, sailor, airmen, and Marines look up to their civilian leadership and not be able to trust it. So as a pilot, and if you have complements of guys who have $3 to $4 million of investment in their training, they have an open job market with the airlines. What choice do they make but to vote with their feet to get out of the military and go with the airlines because they can trust that? They know that that check is going to be there. They know that they don't have to worry about promotions because there's a need. Well, we have the same need in the military, and it makes absolutely no sense for the entire United States Senate and the entire United States military be more damaged by one United States senator than the entirety of any foe that we've fought over the last 50 years to cripple our military. And that's the problem we have with Senator Tuberville holding up these military promotions.
So talk a little bit about your service and how that helped to strengthen you, because I know a lot of folks from the Caribbean have joined the military. Some parents don't want their kids to go because they figure they're going to die. I mean, we know that is not necessarily the case, but the U.S. military serves as training ground and development ground for strong people and strong leaders. And there's a tremendous amount of education that is involved here. I mean, you became a pilot as a result of that, which then allowed you to actually go in the workplace and get a job. And that's a part of what the military development does in terms of educating folks, and then also benefits that they offer: education, the ability to buy a house with little or no money down. The healthcare system that's there for veterans is pretty vast, and the honor that this nation placed on people who have served and have looked to protect the nation and other places around the world. I know we don't always get it right in some of the things that we do as a nation when it comes to our military exercises, but oftentimes the rest of the world depend on us to ensure that peacekeeping missions are upheld and peace is secured in many places. So I want you to talk a little bit about your experience as a veteran in the military.
Well, again, thanks for the question. So me, I came through somewhat orthodox and somewhat unorthodox. I actually took a job out of college. I'd gotten a degree in physics and a degree in mathematics, and had worked on research and development, which was very, very hot. It was my first foray into artificial intelligence, and I was going into the geophysics environment with chemical production. And I made a quick discovery almost within the first 6 months. It was dealing with one-way wave travel. Very, very important. But the interesting thing is that when I presented this, meaning I'm in a room with people from MIT and Harvard and chemical production and Stanford, University of Texas, all those institutions that are very well versed in geophysics. And I couldn't keep their attention because they're still stuck with thinking that I'm some token hired into this environment and I'm just the briefing, not the person who actually did the work, that I'm just the briefer, and I wasn't even a good briefer. Mm. So the things that got me is that there was something missing from my education profile: experience, leadership, the ability to command a room, the ability to lead, and the ability to not worry about those guys who are just jealous because they didn't make the discovery and they had been working on it for pretty much their adult life. But those are the kinds of things that I was looking for from the military. What I got in return was a function of duty, honor, service, and those things that are so core to me right now, which is what got me, positioned to run for the Senate: duty, honor, and service. So when we look at our children, my middle son is in the United States Navy. He does weapons. And I guarantee you, if I thought for 1 minute that he would have a better opportunity going straight to a commercial environment, I would have actually pointed him that way. And I do have a son that works with me every day in the company. And I have a son that works for Delta Airlines. But the one that's in the military, the things that he will get in life experiences, and he does weapons. So those used to be video games to him. The same things that were, into these, I won't even call any of the names, but he is now turned into his job. And that is not a job to be taken lightly, because when he puts a UAV, unmanned vehicle in the air, and it's a weaponized, and it has kinetic authority. He has to think very, very seriously about duty, honor, and country. Because at the end of the day, somebody may die when he pulls that trigger. And so what winds up happening is when we look at military service, it's not necessarily always that heavy. But at the end of the day, it's just a job, but it's a job with purpose. It's a job where the benefits are unquestioned. It should not be interrupted, by the way, with people, playing games with the budget. But I can tell you, as a parent and as a sailor, I think it is a very viable option, whether you get a college education or not, because the military is going to train you.
And they'll also allow for educational dollars for you to get an education too.
Educational dollars. My oldest brother wound up enlisting in the Air Force, and he wound up with his PhD in psychology. My second brother enlisted in the United States Army, and he got his degree in physics and mathematics also from Florida A&M, and wound up running the plant manager for the largest chemical plant in the world, which is the Monsanto plant in Pensacola, Florida, big enough to be a city.
So what happened to your younger brother, man? And went the other way.
Man, he
became an artist, right?
He did his own thing. Two Life Crew. That's a tribute to two-parent household, because the two-parent household where creativity was not at all interrupted. I can tell you one other short story. I came home one day and I said, I told my mother I wanted to paint the bedroom black. Yeah. So it's a 2-bedroom house. Yeah. It's 5 of us in one room, right? So she says, "Oh, baby, that sounds great. Go do it." Because I'm going to go buy the paint. I'm going to go paint it. And I paint the room black, and they come in and say, "What did you do?"
Your brothers were upset.
Oh, they were upset. It looked good. A black room with four bunk beds. Yeah, it was fun.
All right, so I'm going to pivot now to education, because we touched on that a little bit in our conversation just now. Tell me what your stance is on education as we look at how our public school system is not necessarily well funded. Cost of college education has skyrocketed. The chances, the opportunities that so many got earlier is diminishing in terms of getting a college degree. And then you have student loan and all the costs there. And it seems the Republicans don't want to allow for any student loan debt relief. Credit to Biden, every which way they try to block him, he try to find some other way to try and move an agenda to help with this debt relief and help put more money into education. Talk a little bit about the policies. You are someone who went to Florida A&M University, FSU, and then got further education as a part of the military.
Well, the first thing is we should let teachers do education. We should not politicize education with being able to control books and control those things that are associated with just generalized learning. I worked in an intelligence project that dealt with how we briefed the President of the United States, and it was a very advanced piece of technology. And we needed a name for it. And we're all drinking Starbucks coffee, and we named it Verona. And the way the Verona name came up is I'm looking around and I see this guy's cup. And I said, Verona, we're going to call it Verona. This is the briefing book for the president. They're like, where does that come from? I said, in fair Verona, we lay our scene. Act 1, Scene 1, from Shakespeare.
Yes.
So now, I can't now teach that in some classes because it's about 2 young lovers, and that won't fit the teaching parameters for the state of Florida.
And you can't talk about
Black history. You can't, well, the Black history part, I got to answer the question, because that will keep me all day, the Black history, because that slavery thing was a good trades program. And the Department of Labor was doing a great job there. But the issue with education, I actually sit on the board of a junior college. Mm-hmm. Now, clearly, I could most likely be on the board of Bethune-Cookman or Florida A&M, or even the University of Miami or any others. I've worked hard enough to be able to be accepted there. I have technology that they would all want me to, put my data for research and development. But the issue is I sit on a junior college because I look at where I came from in Liberty City. The last the last entrance class at Florida A&M is a 3.8 grade point average. Mm-hmm. The entering class for Florida A&M freshman is going to be a 4.0 grade point average. My graduating self could not qualify to get into Florida A&M today. Wow. So now what is the pathway for me to get to own this beautiful golf course and another one like it in North Carolina if I can't even get out of the starting blocks? That's why I sit on a junior college, because in Indian River and in many of our junior colleges, we can actually, we actually have a program where you can go for 2 years for free. You can get your 2-year degree for free.
So you support that at the national level?
We have to do that at the national level. If we can do it here in Martin County, we can do it in Palm Beach County, and we can do it throughout the state of Florida, and we can do it at the national level. There's no reason whatsoever the first 2 years of college we have to pay for. When we look at England, first 2 years, we look at the Netherlands pays the first 6 years. It makes absolutely no sense that the richest country in the world can't continue the education. And that doesn't have to be, everybody doesn't have to finish with physics. But we just opened a trade center with nursing. And these junior colleges should also be able to compete with the big colleges and get 4-year degrees. Because it doesn't, these are the objectives of what you're going to do. When you look at China, mm-hmm. They graduate in a year almost as many people as we have in the United States from college. Mm-hmm. That is critically important, and almost 30% of them are studying artificial intelligence. Wow! Because they know, as though AI, artificial intelligence, is not an evolutionary thing. It's not going to make your car run better. It's not going to make you think faster or look better. It's a revolutionary thing. You may not even need the car anymore by the time we're done with AI, because that car may be flying, and it may be flying autonomously. Not may, it will be. AI is the most transformational thing in our entire lifetime, and maybe in the lifetime of the last 1,000 years. And we're sitting here worrying about how the richest country in the world should pay for Pell Grants and student loans. It is absolutely crazy. So we should be able to legitimately sit down with the other side and think about things like, okay, how about if we just do this? If you've had a loan for more than 25 years, and if you have been working for that 25 years and not be able to make $100,000 a year, how about we just get them off of the books? Because they don't have an ability to pay, and it makes no sense for them to continue to have debt pile on top of debt. That should be something so simple.
The Republicans don't want to do.
Well, the thing is, they don't until we articulate it to them in a way that should be more sensible.
All right, so we're about to get on a break here, Stanley. When we come back on the other side of this break, because we have to run some advertising to pay the bill, we're going to talk about the healthcare system that you have worked to enhance and some of the things that you look at there. And then we have some more conversation on criminal justice and the economy and a host of other things as we get back on the other side of this break. It's really great talking to you.
When When the game gets rough and this life just seems so tough, make we talk, my people, make we talk.
How am I doing?
Listening to WZOP 92.7 LP FM.
We're not the airline, but we can take you to the islands every Sunday at Island Vibe Sunday at Blue Martini in the Galleria Mall. Enjoy happy hour from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m.
Comrades, are you ready? Comrades, we say it over and over again that young people are the future. But the way young people are being treated in this country at this time has to change. It must change. Time come, comrades, for young people to live good in this country. Comrades, we can look around us and we see the state of hopelessness that many of our young people are in. We see that many of them are choosing chopping over education. We see that many of them are being gunned down and are gunning down people. We see that many of them, they can't afford the school fee, so them just stay at home. We see that many of them are being choked by the high cost that they have to be paying back to SLB. And many of our young people in this country are feeling hopeless. But comrades, I'm here to tell you today that there is hope. There is hope, and it resides within the People's National Party. The PNP has always stood with young people. We stood with young people when Manley gave them free education. We stood with young people when PJ Patterson gave us path and modernized our trust. We stood with young people when Portia Simpson Miller gave us the Sports Development Foundation so young people can advance in sports. And comrades, so it was in the beginning, so it shall be in the end. Time come, comrades, and under our leader, Mark Jefferson Golding, we are ready, we are prepared to bring policies for the young people of this country. People's National Party is ready to make sure that young people in this country see real change. We are ready to not just give you hype and class and all kind of foolishness. We are ready to meet with you. We are ready to walk with you. We are ready to work with you so that you can see a Jamaica where you feel good to live, raise your families, work, and the business. We're not stopping because we know that time is here. Young people, we're fed up and we want better in this country. Time come. We're giving you a warning, Prime Minister. We're ready and we're not back down. PNP strong. We're ready. Time come.
Coming like stormy weather. Ancestors are turning on them grave. To get them out, we can't do it together.
Minister, I can't make it be all about power. As your Prime Minister, it has to be about fulfilling your needs. That's what it has to be about.
Whatever you face this week,
Welcome back to the Make We Talk program here on WZPP and WZOP. We have a live broadcast with Mr. Dale Holness and Senate candidate Mr. Stanley Campbell.
Campbell, yes.
Mr. Holness, over to you, sir.
Yes, good.
Overlooking the beautiful golf course there, sir.
Yeah, Martin Downs Country Club and Golf Course in Palm City, which is in Martin County, right next to Palm Beach County, down from St. Lucie County. It's a beautiful place here, close to the ocean. 228 acres that Stanley, through his investment, has been able to purchase, and is looking to build a plush resort here. Hopefully, the cities will give him and the county will give him the permission to do that, to expand what he has here. But we're talking about some issues here that face people on an everyday basis, and it talks about it's money. Stanley, we have healthcare issues that so many are affected by. Health is wealth, as we know. If you don't have good health, you don't have wealth. And if you have a healthy society, you can be more productive. You grow the economy and benefit folks. We know that Medicaid should be expanded, and there's a bunch of people that are not there. Lots of money out there that should have been utilized by the state of Florida. Would you give us your take on the healthcare situation?
Well, yes. Let's start with the fact that my wife is actually the assistant secretary.
Somebody can buy a sound card for it.
Yeah, my wife is actually the assistant secretary for administration for the Department of Health and Human Services. That means that in English, she is the #1 fiduciary in the entire history of the United States government, because she's the only person that ever had a $5.2 trillion signature authority. The president asked her to take the job because she is the person who navigated us, who basically put the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, on her back and took it across the finish line. He also knew that he needed someone while the administration inherited the government in the massive COVID crisis that could actually be trusted, and that could actually was proven by the fire. And she was the person that helped navigate us through.
So you married up?
I'm married up. I'm married up. In Washington, they say she's Fauci's boss's boss. So that being said, I'm going to do healthcare whether I wanted to do it or not, and I wound up taking my artificial intelligence and moving it to healthcare. But we go back to the work that she did before with Medicare.gov and the Affordable Care Act. we wind up being we're in a state that refused to take the dollars available to us, billions of dollars, which would affect over 800,000 Floridians,
almost a million.
And those 800,000 Floridians are either are either underserved or not served at all. That's $2.8 billion. And by the way, the Florida economy is bigger than the economy of Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, and Mississippi combined. What that means is we put more money than all of those states back into the federal system, but we don't get the $2.8 billion that would come to specifically targeted for Medicare. And what is the issue there? Medicaid. Is that Medicaid is for poor people, and they don't care about poor people. I'll say that again. Medicare is for poor people. Medicaid is for poor people, and they don't care. So for the Affordable Care Act, and those people that we know, be it listeners or people who you know who are underserved in healthcare or unserved in healthcare, ask them to make application to the Affordable Care Act. They have to have an alternative, because what happens under the Affordable Care Act, they should be able to get subsidies if they qualify for subsidies. And the subsidy can go to 100% payment, meaning in our system, when we're looking at the fraud associated with this, a person can actually qualify for an Affordable Care Act plan, and the federal government actually pay the full cost of the plan. So let's make sure that our listeners here understand that the application doesn't necessarily mean you can't get health care. This is the richest nation in the world again. We should have to be able to get our health care. But we've got to elect people who are going to make it absolutely clear and sure that if I get to the United States Senate, or when I get to the United States Senate, we'll just make sure that those states that didn't opt into Medicare expansion, like Florida, will actually have that same allocation that would have been afforded to them applied to the Affordable Care Act. Okay. There is a federal way to get past an impotent and uncaring governor.
Yes. So folks out there so often, they don't necessarily pay attention to the political arena, not understanding how it affects their lives. And this is one way that it directly affects their health. And here's the other part of it. If we have so many people who are not covered by insurance, the rest of us pay for it and the cost of our insurance.
We pay for it at the emergency
room, and the taxes that we pay goes to fund that instead of coming through the insurance program. So that's a huge and very important thing for us to really pay attention to ensure that we have people who care about those who are less fortunate than us. Not everybody is going to have the ability to get all of this. So the Medicaid is for low-income people. Medicare is also now something that if you're a senior, you benefit from.
Yeah, if you're senior, Medicare, generally over 65, but you can also qualify for Medicare being under 65. If you have a debilitating disease, you can still qualify for Medicare. The other issue associated with Medicaid and the Medicaid expansion is the fact that when we talk about this program is called money, right?
Yes, we're talking money.
So who is going to be more likely to see a Black person or Spanish person than a Spanish doctor or a Black doctor?
Most often, that's who you see.
So if you don't have insurance, meaning that $2.8 billion focused at people who would actually put that into the economy
in those communities.
Now, what winds up happening is you don't fund those doctors. If you don't fund those doctors and nurses in their own offices, remembering $2.8 billion. Let's assume only half of that would go into these communities. That's money that doesn't turn in our community.
Yes.
There's a lot of intent on why you don't do this kind of expansion.
Quite sinister. Let's talk about Social Security, because the current senator wants to put Medicare and Social Security on the chopping block every 5 years, that you can go in and then say, we're going to determine whether we want to keep it or not keep it. I mean, that doesn't sound right. I know there are a lot of seniors who are upset that they need Medicare, they need their Social Security check, and and some of the folks who are working right now who are paying into the system, for it to then go out to where you can change the system that we already have for all these years, does that make any sense to you?
Makes no sense. The issue for Rick Scott is he comes from the healthcare community. He made his fortune on the healthcare community. Be it legal or illegal, he made that fortune and he kept it.
Mm-hmm.
The issue for him, he's got an 11-point plan to basically privatize Medicare.
Okay.
So now where do you go if it's private? You go into the exact same system that he was actually able to use to defraud Medicare, but now you're taking the wolf and you're handing him the cottage and grandma, because he wants you to put that all into the hands of the same people that he and others like him work for. In the course of a day, I stop over $100 million every day of Medicare fraud, Medicare and Medicaid fraud through my technology company.
Okay,
that's
a lot of money.
A guy like that, you hand that over to him, that's going to go down by 2/3.
So that's a serious issue. Social Security. A lot of people depend on Social Security. Without Social Security, so many would live in poverty. And that's something also that was part of what he had proposed, that it goes out again each time. And they're talking somewhat about some privatization also. What is your take on that?
So the Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Indian Health Services, the Department of Veterans Health, these are all the fabric for which we as a nation have built a floor. We built an institutional floor that none of us should ever go below. That's what this is all about. And what winds up happening is, if you now can sunset Social Security or make it economic based, you only get out what you paid in. Well, we don't all get a college education. We don't all get to be corporate executives. We don't all get to do the kinds of things that would allow us to have more than 2 years or 3 years of Social Security. What they're trying to do is move Social Security into an evidence-based entity, and then basically for the majority, I would say for probably 80% of this population on the call, would wind up out between 5 and 7 years. So now if you retire at 65 years old and you're now out in 5 to 7 years, what happens to you for the rest of that period up until if you live to 90 years old?
Yes.
Or 85 years old? And many of us have family members who do live that long.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem that we would have, and worse than that is now you look at how do we support these people?
Mm-hmm.
How do we feed them? How do we house them? How do we clothe them? And how do we give them medical attention? These are very, very sinister moves, and we now have Senator Scott has a partner as the Speaker of the House who thinks exactly like that.
serious issue. We're talking about money. So let's talk a little bit about economic development and our role in the world. We see China is really making moves, or has made moves over a long period of time that really takes on developing countries in the Caribbean and Latin America and Africa, and is at the forefront of their economic growth, infrastructure development. And we haven't done as much to ensure that we're there. There was an article a few years ago in the Wall Street Journal that says Africa is the future and America is not ready. It is an issue for us as we look to build our economy going forward. How do we ensure that we continue to engage the rest of the world and create opportunities for our businesses to grow and develop there while we're helping those countries? Marcus Garvey, who many on this radio station would be familiar with, talked about going back to Africa and helping those countries develop. It seems as if China has gotten there before us, even though on my visits to Nigeria and trade mission and to Ghana, they want people from America, especially Black folks, to come back and be a part of their economic growth. How do you see the U.S. Congress, the Senate, working to expand that, supporting Biden with what he gave a couple of years ago, $200 billion to help these developing countries with their infrastructure? How do you see us as a nation in helping these countries?
Well, great question. Great question. I'll take it in two parts. I'll do the African part first. So I actually have been to Africa on a number of occasions. I flew Miss Mandela and Mr. Mandela before apartheid. So I was actually before the end of apartheid. I represented the ANC as freshly out of the United States military. Look at you, got this big smile. I didn't know this. I represented the ANC for aviation matters. Wow. So if you could imagine, I think I might have been like 29 or 30 years old, 31. And I'm now the aviation representative for the ANC, because what they had done is they privatized South African Airways, and the Mandelas and Desmond Tutu had asked me, how do we get it back? And when I did the study and analysis, I said, we don't have enough to run it, but we can actually tax them into oblivion. So they didn't take that advice, but that was my advice. What I did do, though, is I brought the first 10 pilots, which have been in exile and flying, like they were flying in Zambia and other places, some of them in Russia. And I brought them to the United States, and I trained them here and got them U.S. licenses. So what winds up happening is now when they go back to Africa, the United States government has to defend their license, not Zambia. Wow. So that's a big thing. The State Department hated me for that. They absolutely hated me for that, because what winds up happening, and by the way, the first guy to get back, they killed him. The second one to get back is today the head of the South African Military Air Force. Wow. You can't make this stuff up. We played a big, huge role. Yeah. And I did Gabon with Bongo, and did work with Ghana. But at the end of the day, and I actually sold airplanes out of Miami to Triax Airways in Nigeria. That's Triax Airways is no longer operating, but that was the third airline from the national airline. And so I have very, very intimate knowledge of the value of Africa as a continent. Now, going back to the second part of the question is as much a Florida development and a Caribbean development as it is an African development. When I go to Jamaica, I see the big sign on the highway road construction funded by China. When I look as a Navy person, I look at how we basically gave away the Panama Canal. So how this actually China now has full control, huge control. And so what winds up happening is these are very local and national and international implications. The implication for healthcare and economic development are one and the same, because we took pharmaceutical manufacturing, 60% of it out of Puerto Rico and Florida over by Tampa, and moved it to China. Wow. And then we hit a pandemic, and guess what? We can't even get saline. I hope some doctors and nurses are on the call and pharmacists on the call. They'll echo. We can't get saline or sugar water in the hospital. Those are and so what we do have an ability to do right here regionally. Amazon builds 1.5 million square foot facility that they're never going to house. Wow. We can actually bring manufacturing here to Florida.
Huge. Listen, there's so many more things we need to talk about. We're up about 4 minutes left on the program, and we certainly will have to bring you back to cover some more of these more in depth. But I wanted to touch on criminal justice and the criminal justice system and your take on it, as so many Black people are disproportionately affected by it. In the state of Florida, 16.9% of the population are Black, yet 47% of people in prison in Florida are Black. When you look at the Tampa Bay Tribune study a few years ago, it showed that if you're Black and you went before a white judge, you'd get an average 20% longer sentence than if you're white, removing all the differences. If you look at age and education and previous records, you still get 20% longer. And that's part of what drives the system. And it's really debilitating in the community. What's your take on
that? I have very specific and personal ties to the disparity in the legal system. It is. I was in front of a judge about 6 months ago, and I said to the judge in her eye, federal judge, Judge Brinkman in the federal court, I said, what you're doing in your ruling is white privilege. To a federal judge, no. I'm not in jail. I'm still running for the Senate, and I just called her name on this radio station. And it wasn't just white privilege. It was white privilege where she was taking an illegal stance. A company, an individual, had taken my company name, had taken my company ID, had gone to the bank without my knowledge and set up an account and then sent money to the fake company and then to have me to pay the money back. A federal fraud exacerbated by a federal judge in court. Now, if there's an FBI agent on here, one of us, me or the judge, should be arrested. Right now, today, one of us should be arrested. And by the way, I had to pay the money back because she's a federal judge, and I'm running for the United States Senate. There is a disparity in the healthcare system. I mean, in the criminal justice system that is so exacerbated that we can't
get. Stanley, we're almost at time. Give your website and how folks contact you, and we're going to talk about getting some free passes to play some golf up here one day. Go ahead.
Y'all got me too excited.
Yeah.
Y'all got me too excited. Out of time. So, all right. Yeah. Well, so the website is StanleyForFlorida.com.
StanleyForFlorida.com.
Actually, come on often. Come on early. We need your support. We need the support of this community in a very big way.
Okay. Stanley for Florida.
StanleyForFlorida.com.
Okay, and we will have to bring you back to talk some more about other things. See you again.
All right, thank you.
That was a live broadcast with Mr. Dale Holness and Stanley, Senate candidate. Thank you all very much for joining us.
We're not the airline, but we can take you to the islands every Sunday at Island Vibe Sunday. At Blue Martini and the